Hello, and welcome to your Soul Awareness, a metaphysical journey of reconnecting with your body, mind, and spirit. My name is Margie Lantos, and I will be your host for this hour. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Mani Pureheart, who is a spiritual facilitator. He is portrayed as an ordinary person who was suddenly and unexpectedly awakened by spirit in April of 1987. He offers his gifts from spirit to the world as a psychic counselor, a spiritual healer, and a teacher. He wrote a wonderful book called A Book of Answers. He gives workshops and offers many other wonderful tools of empowerment to our world. Mani is totally dedicated to healing and of service to both the spirit and to mankind. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much.
It's a blessing to have you here. I have actually connected with your energies years ago, so I have a little story to tell you. And I knew, something in me knew, that you were going to be my guest one day. But of course, as the universe guides, I trusted it to happen and occur when it needed to. So I think it's time. It needs to. So we're going to find out what the needs are for this world today. So I almost have to chuckle a little bit about it, because you had actually appeared to me almost like a ghost-like image, as I was going to mention the story that I have to tell. A few years back, but I'll call you an angel instead of my ghost. A very lighthearted energy that I had connected with years ago. I don't know if you remember this or not, so I'm going to surprise you with this one. There was a Body, Mind, Spirit Expo down in Salem that had lectures and events, and I happened to, for whatever reason, this one particular slot was not going to work out for me, and I asked to see if the person that had the bigger room would switch with me.
Yeah.
That was me. And I, for whatever reason, I always end up having like 50 to 100 people at these events. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have the room with 25 people. I don't think they realized that I had asked for the larger room. So somehow or another we got misconstrued. But as it turns out, you were kindly gifting me the larger room, which turned out to be perfect. And here's the irony. Here's the irony. Everything turned out to be just wonderful. Yep. So I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to have you here with us today.
You.
So Mani, explain to us a little bit about how you started on this journey.
I didn't have a choice.
Back in 1987. Isn't that wonderful how you don't have a choice?
Well, it's, there was a little bit leading up to it, but basically on my 42nd birthday, I woke up that morning enlightened and had no idea in the world what had happened to me. Had no background to understand it.
Did you even know what it was?
No.
Wow.
I mean, I had a rough idea, but how much of an idea does anybody have about enlightenment? You know, it's kind of a big mystery until you get there. But I was living alone. I had just ended a marriage and was living alone and not having a real good time with life. And I woke up on the morning of my birthday, and I was living in a shabby old trailer in the woods. And I woke up and looked out the window in the bedroom, and here's blue skies and ponderosa pine trees, and I could hear the birds and I could see the squirrels. And I sat on the edge of my bed for a good 45 minutes with tears of joy just streaming down my face.
And you had no idea where it came from.
And ear-to-ear smile, no. And it took 6 months for the tears of joy to finally, I was wiping tears of joy out of my eyes for months.
Did you find that somehow maybe you had asked for this? Or did you send something out that you felt at that time that you needed?
Well, I had developed an interest in the spiritual realm after the first time I died physically, when I was, I don't remember, 23, 25. I was in a car wreck and had my sternum broken in half and the top half bounced off my backbone. And there's things in between that aren't supposed to get squished, like heart and lungs, and so forth. So that kind of put me on a path of, wonder what's on the other side, But I wasn't actively seeking enlightenment. I was seeking understanding. But my current understanding is that I have been a servant of the Creator, a servant to mankind for eons, for thousands of lifetimes. And that the first 42 years of this lifetime, I had some lessons I had to go back and review. And when I had reviewed them and learned them, then it was time to move into what I was really here to do.
Do you feel like maybe you just had a, no pun intended, a wake-up call?
Sort of,
You
yeah.
just all of a sudden, maybe you intended it in other lifetimes to say, this is when I'm going to wake up and this is how it's going to happen.
Well, I suspect that was part of my programming for this lifetime. It's
Must
part
have
of
been
my
something.
contract.
Yeah, it's amazing how we, you know, lately, there's been something that's been really, I would say, hovering over me as far as a concept that seems more accurate with this new age of the power of now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things that I've been recognizing, and I'm sure you're probably aware of this, is how do I put this? How important it is for us to wake up to realize that it's not even so much anything that we really need to control or analyze or wonder so much about, as much as allowing.
Allowing
And
is so key.
trusting. It's
Yeah.
almost like, do we even need to do anything anymore per se as far as figuring it out, or do we just let it happen?
I think figuring it out is a very human thing and a very controlling thing. As I was, after my awakening, Spirit came to me and said, we are going to teach you for the first year, and during that time we're going to block you from doing any reading or any discussion of spiritual
Wow.
nature with anybody. And I was an omnivorous reader. I read everything I could get my hands on, and I even tested them. You know, I had an old Bible in the house somewhere, and I used to open it up and just to see what would come up. And I could read, I'd open it up and I'd read most of one sentence, and then my eyes would bounce back, and I'd have to read most of that same sentence. I could not
Wow.
complete reading that. So after Spirit teaches you for a year, there's not an awful lot that anybody else has to offer.
That is wonderful.
So, but talking about allowing, as I was growing, and of course I had nobody to talk to about this, I seriously thought I was going nuts. And Spirit kept telling me, trust and believe, trust and believe. And over a period of a few months, as I grew in my understanding, trust and believe grew to be 5 words, 5 concepts that Spirit says completely define the aspect, the thing we call spiritual growth. And it's trust and believe. Trust yourself, believe Spirit, believe, or trust Spirit and believe in yourself. And that's the foundation. And then the next is allow. Most of us try. Allowing, trying is an aggressive, acquisitive, manipulative, controlling thing. Allowing, to me, in this context, is a huge nest made of soft ostrich plumes, waiting for a gift to be placed in it, not expecting it, but knowing that it's going to arrive. And then once you learn to allow, then the next step is appropriate. Because once you learn to trust and believe and begin to allow, then there's a unwritten understanding that everything that happens is appropriate, whether we like it or not, whether we trust it or not, whether, you know. Yeah, once we learn
I
to see. And then the 5th word was love. And that's not love for or of, it's simply love. It's divine love, the concept of love. And I'd been teaching this for about 7 years after I'd learned it. And a young man came to my booth in Seattle and sat down, and I offered him the same lesson I just offered here. Spirit says, give it to him as a mantra. And it had never occurred to me that it makes a sentence. Trust, believe, allow appropriate love.
It's got a nice ring to it,
Yeah, the ring of truth.
the ring of truth. And I've been noticing your,
Goosebumps to go with it.
I know, I've been noticing your energies have been following that too,
Yeah.
through the years as I've watched you.
Well,
And,
Spirit gave me the name Pureheart, not on a whim. And when they gave me the name Pureheart, I said, well, aren't people going to think I'm bragging? And Spirit kind of laughed at me and said, you misunderstand. It's not a description, it's a challenge. Now live up to it.
and
So,
you have been living up to it.
I've done my best. Some
Your
days,
energy
some
feels
days I
very
do better
good.
than others.
So how have you found this awareness on your journey? How have you recognized it?
How would you recognize a bulldozer running over you?
So you've been paying more attention.
There's just no choice but to recognize it. It's, yeah, perhaps I've become more receptive. Maybe I've been allowing more and trying less.
So your name. I'd like to ask you about your name.
Okay.
Mani.
Okay. This came about at a time when I was laughing at all these silly people that were changing their name into spiritual names, all vowels and everything. And Spirit says, we want you to use the word Mani as your name. And so I thought, yeah, okay, right, sure, I'll do that. And I put it off for a couple of years, and I don't remember what the process was that made me start using Mani, but I started using it. And I went to Seattle to work with some Native folks, and one of the women came to me afterwards and said, amongst ourselves, we call you Pureheart. And Spirit told me that that was to be my last name, and we went through the, this is not a description, it's a challenge. But for about 2 years after I started using the word Mani as a name, to me it was just a sound, didn't mean anything to me. And I discovered that in Tibetan, in Sanskrit, Mani means enlightenment.
Ah, yes.
And as a teacher, I've had quite a few of my students achieve enlightenment. And so it's a tremendous blessing.
Did you find it surprising that you had been gifting yourself a new name with this awakening?
I was surprised that I actually allowed myself to do it.
Isn't it amazing? It's almost like, are you even the one doing it?
Yeah, well.
You see?
Yeah.
Well, and the reason why I bring that up, I think it's because it's important for others to understand that we're in a world today that allows us to find new aspects of not only spirituality, because I always say that we've gone from a physical world to a mental world, and now we're coming to a spiritual world. So it's like I've been recognizing that we're in this state where we're hungry to understand more of our spirituality and our experience, and how it allows us to come into this feeling of knowing. Do you understand this? And I know this is a little bit difficult for me to bring through, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help others understand that we are in a space where spiritually, as we allow ourselves to move into trust, as you mentioned, and believe that everything's going to happen just the way that it needs to, and as we learn to move out of our way, because I've noticed that a lot with your energy. You do that a lot, which is wonderful about you being a spiritual facilitator, is you allow other people to pick up on that energy, not only of just trusting and believing, but of surrendering to know that there really isn't a whole lot we need to do but to show up.
That's right.
All we need to do is show up. And I believe that your energies have brought that, and that's one of the reasons why, I always say that if we're obviously enlightening ourselves, we're having to be the ones to learn. You understand? And so it's never really about what we specifically teach others. It's what we teach ourselves through the experience of mirroring it into our world.
Right.
But I've noticed that more and more people are hungry to mirror that onto themselves. And I have found one of the simpler ways, which is what you practice, is surrendering.
Yeah.
It's just letting it happen.
Yeah, it's one of the most difficult things for most people. In my book,
Yeah.
there's the section on surrender starts out with red flag, that you've drawn the word surrender. But the first time I died, I've physically died several times in this body, and we talked a little bit about the first time where I had my sternum broken in half and the top half bounced off my backbone. I went through the tunnel of light and onto the other side, and I met a teacher that I will just describe as the highest of the high. And we had an encounter, and he told me, he says, there is one ultimate commandment. And even though I was dead at the time, I was an agnostic when I died, I thought, wait a minute, we're walking on some heavy ground here. He says, hear me, there is one ultimate commandment, and that is to be love in every word, in every thought, in every deed, in every prayer. And that's how I try to live my life.
And it sounds so simple.
It does sound simple.
Which
yes.
I know it's supposed to be. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be, but I do believe that that's one of the reasons why we come here, per se, or we allow our existence in this realm to be, is so that we can, I don't want to say so much challenge, but experience that divinity within us that knows that we can be love because we are love. So it's almost like, I love how the Buddhists say that life is a joke. When you actually wake up to realize what this is really all about, that you're able to live it much more gracefully and with compassion and kindness because it really isn't a big deal per se. It's a very simple deal.
That's right.
And yet we get ourselves caught up in the stumbling factor of chaos and turmoil and upheaval and depression and all the heavy energies, as I call it, that really are nothing more than, as they say, of course, illusions, to challenge us lovingly in this experience of our divinity, which is connected to the energy of God. And of course, God is love.
Right.
So,
Simple does not always translate to easy.
that's true. That's true. I like simplicity, but when it comes to easy, it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
But that's our that's what we've set up.
One other thing I was given at the same time the first time I died, I was told that spiritual growth is never a matter of growing more. It is always and only a matter of limiting less.
Ooh.
And if each day we limit ourselves less, there will come the day that we know that we are truly limitless.
Wow, I like that point of view.
I work for a pretty
That's
good
so
author.
much more easier. I
Yeah.
like that. See,
Yeah.
it just became easier.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the experience of our awakening allows us to transform our energies into attracting simpler, not only simpler ways, but easier ways to live, which is what's happening today. It's what's happening. We're really moving through a period where the how do I want to say the heaviness and the energies that are vibrating out there are really shifts that are surfacing in here to lighten up. Because I know that when you get to a point where enough is enough, you don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, do I really need all this stuff? It's become too heavy. It's become too frustrating for me. So I've learned to lighten things up, including clearing half my house out. It's like, why do I need all this stuff? I just want the simplicities in life, and it just becomes so much more easier, which is ironic because that's how it ends up, easier. So how do you feel that your work has helped others?
I think probably, I do a lot of healing work, and some of that's pretty spectacular stuff. But I don't think that's the important part. I think the important part is that by being who I am openly, I show others who they are. And that's my focus in this world, is to help others to unfutter themselves, to limit themselves less. If I can do healing work, you can do healing work. If I can demonstrate the energy of levitation, you can demonstrate the energy of levitation. If I can be psychic, you can be psychic.
Well, we're all one anyway.
Yes, exactly.
So really, the whole point of this experience is to recognize our not only our wisdom to know, but our capacity to do.
Yeah.
And that's the energy that I believe that you are sending out to help other people recognize within themselves. Because really, I always say technically, we're never really healing anyone. We're waking others up,
Right.
which is really about waking ourselves up.
Right.
And so that's the beauty. So really, we're healing ourselves. And it's about time that so much of the energy is coming together more vividly. Because if you look back in the olden days, it seems to me that there weren't as many people awake. And if there was, it was very few. And
Well,
it's expanded
They didn't
through.
dare be awake.
No, they had limitations by certain aspects of what we created as religions and the control of the masses of people, et cetera. And not today. Boy, do we have a mouth today.
Yeah.
We're able to verbalize pretty much almost anything that we feel comfortable with. Yeah. So I have to say, you make me chuckle a little bit when you say that you've had the fortune of having several near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences to help not only with your abilities to channel. How has this also helped others? What have you found that these experiences has gifted you? Besides, of course, helping a part of you wake up. What, as far as your abilities, have you recognized these experiences to do for you?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't channel.
Okay.
If we are all one being, as you say, who would we channel?
That's true. So,
So
I love that concept when they say God is working through me. So it's a part of me that's working through me. I'm trying to grasp how will we put, so you're basically tapping into your own inner
our own
wisdom?
divinity.
Your own,
Our own divinity.
okay.
If we are all created of the Creator by the Creator, then we are all a part of the Creator.
That's
So
a tough one for
would you-
some
would
people
you-
to swallow.
It's a very tough one. It took me years to figure it out. And quite often when I'm out in the world and doing what I do, and there are people around me that I understand would be uncomfortable if I said I'm doing it from my own divinity, I tell them I'm just the glove on God's hand. But I don't mention the fact that I'm also the hand in the glove.
Well, we do have to use a little bit of discernment
Yeah,
in this field,
right.
and not because we're afraid to, but because I have found that if you, I've always been one of those type of people that love to be, I call it a can opener. But I'm very careful with what they're ready
Be
for.
gentle.
I'm
Yeah,
very
exactly.
gentle,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Some people
exactly.
just are not ready to hear the deepest aspect of truth.
Right.
You know, so
I very recently was at a gathering. A friend of mine has a Taekwondo studio in Bend, and there was a gentleman there that's a retired military guy, and Mr. Tough Guy, and he had a really bad lower back, and I had never met the man before, and he was leaning over and stretching out his back, and I knew instantly, I could tell where it hurt him. And I just, without even thinking about it, reached over and touched his lower back, and this guy stood up like somebody shot him. He says, "What are you doing to me?" And he fell backwards against the wall, and he puts his hands out, and then he yells, "I can feel the bumps in the paint on the wall." Well, this was just a really spectacular healing. I mean, way out of the ordinary even for me. But his lower back was completely and totally instantly healed. And he had neuropathy in his hands and hadn't been able to feel anything with his fingers.
wow.
But in that instant, from that time forward, he's able to feel lumps in paint on the wall.
And you probably didn't even think twice about doing it.
No, and it was just, it was, the further along my path that I've gotten, I've discovered that the less I think about the healings I'm doing, the more effective they are. Because healing is not something you do, it's something that you be.
And that you are.
Yeah,
It's already
exactly.
a part of you.
Exactly.
And it just comes.
And it
it
just happened to be
moves
that
through you.
his spirit was ready for that, but it was.
And he was
it
obviously
quite
open to it.
spectacular. Well, no, he wasn't.
Well, I meant in the form of being
spiritually,
okay
yeah,
with it.
yeah. I mean, it just took him. It took both of us completely by surprise. But it was really fun to watch because as you talk about an awakening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, and it's fascinating too when you actually get hit in that form on a human level, which basically means that nothing that we actually experience, whether it be positive or negative, is actually bad or wrong or good per se. It just is.
Yeah, you'll find that in my
Recognizing
book.
your
There's-
divinity.
Yeah, the perception creates reality. So if you perceive something to be bad, then it'll be bad for as long as you perceive it to be bad. If you perceive it to be good, then it'll seem like it's good, and for as long as you perceive it to be good. But if you perceive it as it simply is, it's another eddy in the current of the river of life. No big deal.
That's amazing. What do you feel is the power behind your abilities?
Love.
And I know you say divine love.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit to us? Because it's easier said than done. Is there any feelings that you expressed through the energies of your abilities that you've recognized?
I'm not quite sure how
Well,
to
people
interpret the
usually end up
question.
saying, hey, that's, it's nice, but how do I find it? How do I know it? How do I recognize it?
What I tell people, and I've taught thousands of people how to heal, it's the easiest thing in the world. And I describe it this way: you love and get out of the way. And just last night, there was a young lady, 14 years old, that had expressed an interest in learning how to heal like I did and she was working with her mother, and she was massaging her mother's head and her mother's neck and everything. I said, "Stop massaging. Just put your hands right there, right there. Now reach up and connect with divine love and let it flow through you." And she did that, and had chills through her whole body. I said, congratulations, you're healing. It's that simple. It is the simplest thing in the world to be a healer.
I think it's only the mind that, excuse me, gets in the way.
And that goes back to limiting less.
We assume that we cannot, which is one of the words I've taken out of my vocabulary, is I can't. No, I can.
I always tell people to say, if they want to say I can't, say I haven't been able to up till now.
I like the latest one, which is I'm willing. Because some people just aren't fully, ready to experience their greatness. But if you're willing, it's a little less scary. I'm willing to change, or I'm willing to experience love. I'm willing to experience my divinity. I'm willing to experience my empowerment.
Yeah.
And it just seems so much more comfortable to be able to know that you don't have to jump into it right away, that once you're willing, it will just start opening up. I love that concept of ask and you shall receive. Then you just get out of your way, and then you wonder, wow, it actually happened. Well, did you ask for it? Well, yes. And then you see people just kind of, shying away to their ability to be able to magnify their power.
Well,
it's amazing.
we've been trained that it's wrong, that it's impossible, that it's, in some schools, satanic, I mean, what's satanic about divine love?
What's satanic about God?
Yeah.
That's the whole point, is we're here to learn to recognize our power. It's a slow process for some people, but I believe that we're en route to it occurring more and more. Have you noticed how many people in your field that have been asking to wake up to their potential of their intuitive abilities?
Well, I don't catch them asking out loud, but I get more and more people coming into my workshops. And,
Curious.
And, I'm so open. I can be walking down a sidewalk and the Spirit says I need to talk to somebody about something. I'll talk to them about it. The Spirit told me I'm the point man. I'm out there in front of everybody to take the slings and arrows so the people behind me don't have to.
That's true. It's almost like you're a pioneer. You put yourself in the place of being a pioneer. But that's the whole point of us experiencing, as us being, like I said, the can openers per se. But it's not even so much that we're doing it for them. We get to be able to understand it so that we can help them recognize their own ability.
Yeah, I always tell people there's absolutely nothing special about me.
No.
Except
it's all
that
the
I've
same.
learned how to limit less.
And it's like a baton. Somebody in front of me has handed it off to me.
Yeah.
And it just on and on it goes. And I have this little running joke about, usually when I do audience readings, I'll find myself saying, how do I know that I'm not the one actually being tested by them? And so these are my masters.
And does it matter?
Recognizing that I'm passing the test.
Yeah.
Am I doing well? Am I, so it kind of puts me back in my place so that I don't feel like my head is left. Actually, I prefer that my head would leave the building and I'd stay in divine love. And so that's what helps me ground myself, to know that this is all just one big party, that we're all seeing our empowerment. That's all it really is. It can't be much more than that. I know some people say, well, that's too easy. But that's the point. Isn't love simplicity?
It's simple.
Exactly. Exactly. So how do you feel, what do you feel we're all here to experience then?
Life.
Just simply life.
Yeah.
Let's not make it complicated. It's just about life.
I have this theory, and as far as I know, I'm the only one that has this theory, but I feel like this thing we call life is God's method of reproduction. And again, it goes back to, if we're all created of the Creator, by the Creator, and we're all put here or wherever we are, in different planes and different planets, to experience life and to grow through that. Well, first of all, as all the different parts of the Creator grow, then does not the Creator grow also? So this is the Creator's school is life. But also, the object is to grow to the point where somewhere, sometime, probably not in a body, we realize that with just a simple thought, we can create an entire universe. And if that's the case, then who's the creator of that universe?
We are.
So then we are God's method of reproduction.
So we're just experimenting
Yeah.
of what we already know.
It's like a kid learning how to walk and then learning to ride a tricycle and then learning to ride a bicycle with training wheels and eventually learning to fly. That's what we're here to do.
Wow. So with the heavy energies encircling the world today, what advice do you feel that you can give to help those in need of some peace?
Be love. Beatles got it right. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. As you create love around you and disperse it to everybody around you, you open your world to accept more love.
Wow. So one of the things that I've noticed the last 2 days that have been repetitive with me was what you send out is what you get back. What you put your intention on grows. And I think what's happening with us today is that we're really needing to allow ourselves to maybe spend a little more time being aware and observational in our own, maybe our own knowing or our own belief that we can become great because we are great. And I think if we spend way too much time worrying about the humanness of whether it's materialism or how do I put it, our car payments of how can we afford the bills, because it's a trying time right now.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that the more that I've made an effort of focusing on what brings me joy, even in the midst of turmoil, my pain and suffering lighten, and all of a sudden things that I need appear, whether it's extra money for a bill or someone drops off maybe a bag of groceries or something. Actually, I haven't had that one happen yet. I do that for others, but I have different things that show up in different ways.
Right.
And so in order for, at least for me, I have found a greater sense of peace when I've trusted the process more in a positive manner instead of a negative manner of worrying and becoming frustrated with it. It doesn't do any good for me. I've learned that, other than maybe screaming it out and getting it out of my system so that I don't have to continue carrying it, I have found that the energies of trusting, as you said, and believing have really aligned me to feel the process of life to occur as it needs to. And it's quite amazing. So have you noticed more with the sessions that you've done about people asking how to maybe help themselves in this current and I know we've always had turmoil. I want to say that people will say, well, it's become heavier. Well, no, we've had heavy energies as long as we've been on this planet Earth. I think in many respects it's actually gotten a little bit easier. We just see it differently and their perceptions are differently this time.
Go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say that, how have you found that with the work that you do, have people been asking more about certain things to be able to help them, or to give a balance?
I shortcut that with them because one of my core beliefs and one of the things that I use as a teaching tool is my belief that everything always happens for us and nothing ever happens to us.
That's a better way of looking at that.
If you go back in your own memories to something that seemed absolutely horrible in your life, that seemed like the end of life as you knew it, you didn't want to go on and so forth, well, you're still here. And over a period of time, as you healed and as you spent time with this, whatever it was, you learned more about yourself, you learned more about life, you gleaned from this supposedly bad episode tools that have helped you to move forward in life. So I always tell people, okay, so you're out of work right now and you're about to lose your house. And that's on a human level, that's a very sad, very unhappy thing, but it's happening for you. And now the question is, are you going to wait several years to understand that it's happening for you and be in misery during that time? Or are you going to start beginning to understand right now that it's happening for you, and look for the good that's hidden in the apparent bad.
Which is really the reason why we're here.
Yeah,
It's to recognize
yeah,
that good which is love.
exactly. And if you understand that everything happens for you. You know, we've talked about the death of my daughter 2 years ago. And as a father, it's one of the worst things I can imagine, and one of the worst things I've ever gone through in my life. As a man of spirit, my God, it was beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful spiritual experiences I've ever had.
How have you found that it has helped you recognize yourself here on this earth plane?
What, the death of my daughter?
Yes.
I don't know that it's helped me recognize myself on the earth plane, but it's validated an awful lot of what I knew that I knew. And I was just so very, very pleased for her that she was able to encompass a lot of what I had taught of. I couldn't teach my daughter because I was daddy, I wasn't the teacher. But she would hang around the house when I was working with other people, and I was always aware that she was listening. You know, if I wasn't teaching her, she was willing to learn. And when it came right down to the wire for her, she practiced what I preached, so to speak, at a level that almost embarrassed me because I didn't know if I could have done it that well. Yeah, it was just such a beautiful thing. And she and I still talk every day.
So you're still connected with her. Isn't that amazing?
How could I not
Sometimes
be?
I found that when I've had a couple of people that were really close to me, that when they've gone to the other side, sort of say, and I'm just saying it so we can understand it, that I always say there's an extra leg up on the other side to be able to help us. So in some respects, it almost seems like the energy, because they're not having their personality stand in the way, is much more easily connected to helping us find our own state of awareness at a much higher level and frequency.
Yeah, my daughter will come to me in one of two forms. She'll either come to me as my daughter, you know, and I'll do something, she'll say, Dad.
I like that. Oops, you better listen.
And she's got a sharp sense of humor too. And then sometimes she'll come to me as the extremely high angelic being that she is, and just kind of give me a nudge in a direction that
Oh, that's beautiful.
will support what it is that I'm trying to do.
That's, you know, and that is what, and I've experienced that before, so I know what it feels like, and it just, it brings a smile to my face to know that, and to my heart to know that we have that connection. And I so pray that so many more people have, you know, to open up to that connection, because, you know, we're in a world where we blind ourselves to what really truly can be and is a part of us by our fear. And I usually say that life is like the life on earth is like a rubber band. The more that you've stretched it further away from the core center of its truth, the harder it becomes, because after a while, how long can you hold on to that rubber band being expanded? And so our sense of our oneness is really coming back to ourselves in a very relaxed manner, with that, of course, rubber band being able to just simply sit on your hands instead of having to hold it or fight it. And so it's amazing. You say that your needs, your level of awareness, talk a little bit about your sessions, your needs, your level of awareness, and your belief system will dictate the type of reading you receive.
Right.
So as you mentioned, it just comes through
Yeah,
you.
I don't have a cookie cutter reading. What I do, it differs with each person, and sometimes it differs with where that person is at that particular time, and I have a innate knowing of what they will and won't tolerate, what they are and are not ready to hear, and sometimes how to kind of work around and give them a lesson that they weren't really ready to hear in the beginning, but give it to them gently enough that it's kind of a time release.
So you have a pretty good feel of where that person stands.
I would say so.
And what they need to learn in life. So do you have a specific, do people, as we have your information up here right now, they can visit you at your website, which is I love this, I4C4U.com.
Right.
That's
All
very
letters
beautiful,
and
by the
numbers.
way.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. And you have a book out that is called The Book of Answers, which
No.
is volume 1.
It's called A Book of
Oh,
Answers.
A Book of
Not-
Answers.
Not the Book
Not
of Answers.
A Book of Answers.
Right.
I'm glad that you had clarified that for me, because there is another one out there called The Book of Answers.
Yeah.
So A Book of Answers. Can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Well, it was an interesting thing. When I was in school, I hated writing, and if the teacher says I want a 250-word essay, I'd write 187 words and shine it on. And Spirit told me, "You're going to write a book." Yeah, right. Okay, sure. And they said, "We want you to go and gather as many words that you can find that are used in the context of a spiritual reading, and we want you to define those words within the light of a spiritual reading, because they don't always mean what they mean in the dictionary." So reluctantly, I went out and I found, I did a lot of research, and I came up with roughly 500 words that are commonly used in spiritual readings: light, love, God, goddess, growth, darkness, things like that. And for each word, Spirit had me write the meaning, the general meaning of the word within the concept of a spiritual reading, what it would mean in the sense of a personal relationship, how it would relate to a general out in the world rubbing elbows relationship, how it would reflect on yourself personally, and then whatever harsh aspects there might seem to be associated with that word. You know, you've read the book, you know that there's really no bad word in the entire book.
Right, right.
And then to me, the real jewel, and all of this information was not channeled, it came from my own highest awareness. And I wish that I could live where I wrote all the time, because there's stuff in there that I can read it and it makes me weep. But the finest aspect is the comments from Spirit at the end. It's like they take everything and
Yes.
they make these beautiful little jewels and just
I did notice
place them
that.
in the book.
It really warmed my heart.
Yeah.
I knew that when it was time, you had sent the book a little while back, that Spirit would guide me to be ready. And I have found it to be a great gem, not just a little gem, but it's a great gem, because so many people, and it's a slow read. It's not something that you do immediately. You actually need to soak in the information. You cannot.
It's very
You
concentrated.
cannot
There's
rush.
no fluff factor.
No, and I actually took on the flipping to the pages.
Yeah.
I didn't just read it from cover to cover. I actually asked Spirit every day to flip through something that I knew was needed for me at that time. And so that's what I found
And
fascinating.
it's never wrong, is it?
No, it's
And
exactly what I needed.
Sometimes it doesn't tell you what you want to hear, but
Well,
yeah.
yes,
but that's what you need
true.
to hear.
I know. And I have found that I actually took it the way that I not specifically even wanted it, but knew I needed that day, because I've always trusted that there are no accidents.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing out of order. Everything is in absolute perfect order. I don't care if you trip. I don't care if somebody cuts you off. I don't care if, somebody called you on the phone, it was the wrong phone number, but that's the person that you needed to talk to that
right.
day. Everything is in a unified, perfect, divine order. And
happens for
timing
you.
is just absolute. And so I don't really try to I shouldn't even say the word try. I really make an effort of not worrying about anything anymore. And I'm not saying that I still don't, because it's still,
That's a work in progress. We all are.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, I tried real hard to write the book from my own highest awareness, and I tried to write it from my heart to your heart.
Which is what we experience. Yeah. And that's why I always believe that everybody picks up what they need, and that book is what I needed. And thank you. It
You're
was a great
welcome. Thank you.
gift
I'm
for our
glad you
world.
enjoyed it.
Great gift for my heart. And so, what have you found as far as your readings? Going back to your readings a little bit, so I wanted to make sure that we tap
Sure.
into this a little bit. What have you found that your readings have been successful mostly in? I know that you do a lot of healing.
Yeah,
What do you do
it's-
mostly? Healing?
Well, a lot of people that come to me are somewhat novices, and for whatever reason, seem to have an extremely highly developed sense of what's going on in other people's bodies and their energy fields. And so if the person doesn't come to me with a specific set of questions, but they just come out of curiosity or because they felt like they needed to, I usually start with what I call a full body scan. And I just start at the top of their head and I go through and I describe all the stuff that's going on in their body. And as I describe it, I will either tweak it a little bit and help them to heal it, or I will, a lot of physical ailments are associated with emotional, spiritual complications. So if I run into something, I'll say, well, that's because of this and this and this. And a lot of times just the information is enough to heal the physical aspect. But I guess I use the physical evaluation as a doorway to get into the spiritual and the emotional stuff that's going on in their lives. You know, I tell people, I'm not the kind of psychic that you call and say, am I going to get a new job, or is my boyfriend cheating on me? Or I go to another psychic. I can do that, but why? I'm here to help you. I'm not here to feed your insecurities and add fuel to your fire of confusion.
Well, no, and excuse me, that does make a lot of sense, because just the other day I actually had someone that was asking if I was going to be with this mate or not. And in some cases, and I'm not saying that at certain times the information would come up, but this is what I have found. If you ask a question that is, how do I put this? Something that you directly have to feel like you have to have. Mm-hmm. You will not get that answer in that same way that you think that you should from someone else. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that the universe won't gift you a sign, or it almost feels like it's there to help you find your own wisdom.
Exactly.
Of knowing that you can trust your heart
exactly.
to lead and give you the information that you need in order to learn that experience. So it's mm-hmm. never really about, really, is this person going to continue being in my life or not? Mm-hmm. You already know if you're asking.
Right, you're asking it from insecurity.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so something is going on that's actually helping you move deeper into knowing, what is this really all about for why I'm actually asking.
Right. See, that's the trust and believe mm-hmm. part of.
Yeah, boy, the trust and believe. Mm-hmm. How would you, now that you bring that up, it's, you know, and I know those are words, but what would you say to someone if, and you do teach classes and workshops, right. What do you tend to teach in the class of how to help someone get in touch with feeling more comfortable about knowing how to trust themselves and how to believe?
Well, I've been really blessed in that I'm one of the very few teachers that I know who can teach somebody a spiritual technique and monitor energetically where they're at with it, if they've got a blockage, where it is. So it's like if somebody's trying to teach a kid how to ride a bicycle and you see them doing something that is not conducive to riding the bicycle well, and you can say, well, you know, try doing this instead.
Okay.
And so I can do that, and I can provide the reinforcement and the little nudges here
yes.
and there that help people get to the point where they actually do what it is we're teaching. And once they've actually done it, and they know that they've done it, then that's all the confidence in the world
that they need.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that saying. Years ago I heard this, can't exactly remember where, but I always say that I'm in the business to be out of the business. I want to be able to help people to learn and teach themselves that they can find the answers within themselves, and that we already do know. I think the trust factor just comes up from I call it the monkey mind.
Yeah.
It usually tries to mess things up and create the anxiety of not knowing. Mm-hmm. But we all know. Yeah. We all know.
Yeah, some of us are just afraid to admit to our own divinity, to our own power.
That we know.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's something that we've been trained since we were this tall. You know, oh, you can't do that. That's impossible, or that's evil.
Don't spill your milk.
Yeah. Or,
well, let's see. If you're aligning a negative, what does that usually show up as? A negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So, anything else that you would like to comment on? Oh, let's tell us a little bit about your classes and workshops.
Well, they're very sporadic, and they're basically determined by how often I can get 10 or more people that are willing to spend a weekend with me. I teach people how to do everything I do. We start out Saturday morning. We start with, this is energy. This is what energy feels like. This is how you create energy. This is how you manipulate energy. This is, blah blah blah. And so people actually, I teach them how to create a bar of energy, how to feel that bar of energy, how to increase the strength of it. We go then into diagnostic techniques using energy patterns, energy fields around the body, and then healing is just a natural follow-up for that. Then I work with distance healing, healing animals. I work with psychic abilities, and then we wind up usually on Sunday afternoon. We've gone through all this. We review it. We have a nice lunch together, and then I top it off by teaching the basics of levitation and healing with your angelic wings, which is a really
Wow.
neat thing too.
That sounds wonderful.
So, and it's spirit guides it all, but you start out, you can walk in not knowing anything and walk out having done everything.
And learned what you needed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything shows up just as it needs to.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful having you here with us
Thank you.
today.
It's been wonderful to be here.
So once again, if we can bring up the photo of the book that Mani has beautifully written through his State of Wisdom, a book of answers. And I hear you have a second one perhaps coming out.
I'm working on volume 2. I'm also working on about 6 other books.
You're a busy boy.
Well, I'm a good procrastinator.
How's your
one
wife
of the
doing?
And my wife and I are collaborating on a book about our daughter's life and death.
Oh, that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see that one. So once again, it's been a pleasure having you here with us today. I'm so blessed to have you. So for those of you that are interested in our monthly gatherings, we have, let's see here, I believe we've switched it to October through May, and this is at Health Quest at 1330 Southeast 39th in Portland, Oregon, once a month on second Thursdays of each month from October through May. Usually take the summers off as the weather tends to be too nice to be able to be indoors at this time. But if you'd like, join us if you're ever interested. We do audience readings, and we talk about what's going on in the world today and where we're at, and just a fun little evening. So until next time, let's bring out your website really quickly. Your information, we don't want to forget the information. If you're interested in connecting with Mani Pureheart at www.i4c4u.com, and his email address is Mani, which is MANI. We'll bring it up here in just a moment here, at i4c4u.com. It's a beautiful, beautiful email. And once again, it's been a pleasure having you here with us today.
Thank you.
You don't have a contact as far as a phone number.
I prefer not to.
Okay. Well, most people are pretty much, I always say that if you can't, if you don't have a computer, because some people, they don't have a computer, I bet you will know somebody that does.
Yeah.
And that can contact you.
The people that are
through the
supposed to be in touch with
information.
me will be in touch with me.
So, okay. So, once again, it's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, our beautiful angels out on the world. Until next time, namaste.